Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to go through my email inbox. Now you can already see my inbox. There are only two emails over here, nothing controversial, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to have access to my Gmail using an AI agent. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that we've been building AI agents using Google's Agent Development Kit. In this video, what I'm going to do is continue from the previous video where we built a substitute for an MCP server that can access files on our Google Drive. So if you're interested in that, check out that video. In fact, I highly suggest it because a lot of the setup steps have been done in that video. In this video, we're going to use those setup steps and integrate our Gmail API using Google Cloud platform. And we will be basically playing with this inbox that we have on our screen. So without further ado, let's go to our code and let's see what we have in store for us. So a few changes that we did from the previous video that I've renamed the folder because it was G Drive previously. I've added Gmail logic over here as well, so it made sense to turn it into a Google suite, a G suite, if you may. So all of our Google applications will be a part of this agent. And other than that, we've just added some more logic over here. For example, these steps stay the same, except now you also have to enable the Gmail API. So you go over to your Google Cloud platform, you go to Gmail API, there'll be an enable button over here. You can click it and then you can see this manage button after that's done. So you go to your Google Cloud platform, go to your APIs section, and if I just go back, I can just go to APIs and services. I can search for it. I can search for Gmail, go to Gmail API. I can enable it from here. Then I added some scopes to my API. So I basically told Google that these are the accesses that I want for my application. In the previous video, we only enabled this one. We only added this particular scope to our API. In this video, I've basically added these three scopes so that I can use them for my application. All right, so let's just go over there and show that to you. So you go to the data access tab over here. So you have all these options over here. Go to data access, add or remove scopes, right? And then you just basically copy these. You can just go to my GitHub repository. You can find that in the description below, the link. You can just copy these and paste them over here and you will find the values. Although there is one of these scopes, that is this one over here, that is gmail.modify, that you may not find in this table. What you can do is you can copy that, paste it over here. You can manually add it, click add to table once you're done, and it will start showing up over here. Once you've added all of them, hit update. I have 4 of these over here. All right. So there are 2 of them which have some non-sensitive data like my email ID, my profile data. Then I have my Google Drive info, which we used in the previous video. And in this video, the main scope that we need is this modify scope, gmail.modify, which we will use to read emails, send emails, and delete them. All right. So that's basically what you need to do with respect to scopes. We've already added some test users, so I'm not going to show you how to do that again. You can see the previous video for that. And this is from the previous video. We've already downloaded our credentials and stored them in this file over here. Now, let's go over to our agent and see the differences in code as compared to what we had previously. So I've imported a few more libraries over here, a few more dependencies. We don't need to install them explicitly, except maybe async.io, you may need to install this. Then I've just installed an inbuilt library that we have, which is used to format our emails in a certain format that follows a certain standard. All right, so that is why I'm importing this library. We will see that in action in a bit. Then the base64 library is just used to encode or decode some messages that the Gmail library uses. So that's basically why we imported it. We'll again see this in use in one of the functions. I've added some more constants over here. Some of these are, if you will be familiar with, if you've seen the previous video, like this one. I've renamed the credentials path to G Drive credentials path because it stores the credentials for my Google Drive. And so yeah, that's basically what it does. and then a Gmail credentials path. So after authenticating with the key file path, the credentials will be stored in this path. All right, Gmail credentials path, which we don't have over here. Once we authenticate, we'll see this file in this particular credentials folder. Then our Gmail scope, I've just added one of them over here, gmail.modify. It's enough for us to send our email, read emails, etc. etc. And I have made a small change to my authenticate and save function. I've added a parameter over here that is app. By default, it is taking the Drive app, and if the app is Drive, we use the logic that we implemented previously. If the app is explicitly passed as Gmail, then we check the Gmail credentials path, and if it exists over here, which it does not at the moment, we return it, and that basically means that we already have the credentials. But if we don't have the credentials, we go over our credentials, take in our scopes, and complete the entire flow by opening up a new server on port 8080 that is specified over here. And again, we've gone through this in the previous video. The process is basically the same. All right, the only difference is the file name. We use a different file to store these credentials. Maybe you don't even need to have this sort of a difference, but just to differentiate between the two different sub applications between Drive and Gmail, I've kept it different, separate, isolated for now. All right, now these are the functions that we used for Google Drive. We don't need those in this video. For our Gmail, we have different functions. So we have our get Gmail client. This will build the client which can be used to call our Gmail API. So we use authenticate and save function that we just went over. We pass in Gmail as a parameter, which will bring us to this flow. And then it will just go over and build our credentials using the Gmail API. Alright, in the previous client, we had the Drive API version 3. In this one, we'll have Gmail version 1. Alright, so that's the difference between the two clients, in case you're wondering. Then we have a few tools at our disposal. So I've already added those tools over here in this row. So for the first of which is get current user email ID. Let's go over that. Basically, it just gets the current user's email address, not the name, just the email address. And it will get our client from this function. It will get some details, specifically the email address, and it will print it for us. Now, obviously, I'll be hiding the email address that comes up in the response for security reasons. You can check this out for yourself as well, but I will show you a blurred out response. Then we have the send email function. It takes in some parameters, the sender ID, which is obviously needed, the recipient ID, again, obviously needed, and the subject and the message for the email. The basic components that make up an email address. We're going with a simple email for now. We're not talking about attachments or anything fancy like HTML at the moment. We will just be talking about some simple text content for this video. So we get the client using our function. We define the scope basically that it creates and sends an email message. Now, this email message library is what we've imported over here. I had showed this to you at the beginning. That we've imported this. Why have we imported this? Well, because it, like I said, follows a certain standard, the protocol basically that is needed to send an email or receive an email. It uses the particular functions that have been inbuilt. So this is the library that I'm talking about, the email library. You can go through the documentation if you feel up to it. I have already gone through it. I don't need to. You can if you feel like enhancing your knowledge. So it just follows the basic protocols that we need for email communication. And I've just used that so that I can just use its functions to make my format without worrying about what it actually is. So I have my set content, which I used to set the content of my email. I set my recipient ID, sender ID, and the subject. I encode it into base 64 because that's the format it needs. Then I just put it as a raw base 64 encoded email content. I simply send it. This is where the async IO library comes in, which I imported over here. Async IO basically says that is used to wait for any sort of async operations. So whenever you make an API call, typically you have to wait for the operations to finish, and then You get the response, you process the responses data however you want to. If you've used JavaScript, you know how async await it works. It is just a library that is supposed to emulate that behavior. So it basically is waiting for my email to send first, then whatever is the response, it stores in this variable send message, and I forward the message's ID, the email that has been sent, its ID back as a response. That is what we get from this API. All right. So we will see that in our chat as well, in our ADK chat. Then we have our get unread mails. Or should I? It should basically be get emails, not get unread mails, because we have specified a type over here. So I'll just update that in real time. So I've get emails. So it fetch emails from my mailbox and it returns the message IDs as message underscore ID. All right. So I get my client. I specify the user ID as me. That's a default for my Gmail client. It uses the current user's email ID if I specify it as me. So in my query, I can just simply get emails from my inbox. There are of course other components as well in my email, right? All these components, you can play with them. For now, I'm going to stick to inbox. If you want, you can add, a different in parameter as well. But right now, I'm not going to dive into that. The type can be read or unread. So I've just specified a default type that is unread. And I want my primary emails. If you want other emails like promotions or social or updates, you can always do that. So you can get the response, get messages using the API, just add the message IDs to this array over here. And if I have more emails to process, let's say I've processed 10 emails, I want to get 10 more. I explained this in the previous video as well. Google does not work on page numbers in its API. It does not give me page 1, page 2, page 3. It gives me a token for a page, an opaque token. That could be something like, this. And I have to use that token to get information of the next page. So if I have this token, I will continuously go in a loop and get my emails. And then I will return all these message IDs from this function, and that we will see as a response. Then we go over our email content. So I've fetched all these email IDs, unique ID. I can pass that over here and get the content of this email. So how will we actually process this content? Because like I said, this email is sent in a certain way, received in a certain format. We need to first format, destructure that format in a manner that suits us. So let's go over that. So I have my empty object for an email data, a dictionary, since we're using Python. Then we have our raw data that can be gotten from this messages raw, component. Then the decoded data is basically your base64 data decoded. Like I mentioned previously, when we send an email, it is first encoded, right? So here we are simply decoding that data. And once it's decoded, we get this MIME message. Now this message from bytes is basically imported from this email library once again. Now this is because, like I said, emails follow a certain format. That format, I've opened this over here. It's RFC2822. It defines the protocol in which email communication should happen between servers. So that is the standard that is followed. We are simply following that standard for our benefit. So that is what is used to decode this data that is received in that particular format. So if you want to dig more into it, you can read this as well. Just search for RFC2822 and you'll get this. Then just extract the email body, and if it is multi-part, if this message that we're sending is multi-part, by multi-part I mean emails can have different parts. It can have the content, it can have some pictures, some HTML maybe. Those are your multi-part emails which came in fairly recently as compared to your raw text emails, right? So if we have that sort of a thing, we just want the text content out of it, we get that and we update our body and we get out of this. Otherwise, if it is not a multi-part email, we simply get this content and put it in our body and move forward. So we get our content, which is the body that we've just processed over here. We just put our subject, the sender, the recipient, the date at which this email was sent, and then we just return this email data. Now, small homework for you is trying to replicate the behavior of my inbox. So if I read an email, typically it is marked as unread, right? So if I go over here, whenever you get an email, typically it is marked as unread, so it is highlighted over here, right? But when you open it, you see that it is not highlighted anymore, right? That is what marking an email as read means. So you can try to implement this yourself to emulate the actual behavior of your inbox, because just because you're reading from an AI agent doesn't mean that your inbox shouldn't be updated, right? So that's basically what you can do at your own level. Then lastly, we will delete an email. So it deletes your email by passing it the message ID, and that simply calls the trash function over here and sends your email into trash, returns a simple message. All right, and all these functions have been imported over here in this array. And you already know the steps to start your ADK. I will not be going through it once again. You can see the previous videos for it. ADK web starts up your server. You go over to port 8000, which is just open over here. So let's just open this up. This time we'll go to G Suite. So I'll ask what is my email ID. I'll have to hide this for security reasons, but no shame in seeing this in action. So I'll select the email ID, the inbox of which I just showed you, which is the same email ID coincidentally that whose drive files I was accessing in the previous video. So authentication has been completed. We can close this window, or we can choose to keep it open, doesn't matter. Now we can just basically, this is my email ID. You can't see it, that's fine. But in your case, it will be the email ID that you select when you click on whichever email ID you do on this particular tab. So I have my email ID now. So I'll just refresh it so that it just all goes away. Now I want to send an email to myself with this is saying hello world. So it gets my ID on its own. It needs to figure out who it should send an email to, and then it sends an email. It tells me that I've sent an email to this ID with the subject hello and the message hello world. The question is, have I actually received this email? For that, let's just go to my inbox. Let's hit refresh over here, and I have received an email from myself saying hello world. All right, right now I will not open this because we want to fetch my unread emails. So let's go over and say get my emails. So let's see which emails will it actually get for me. So it's asking me the type. By default it is unread, but it is still asking me that just let me know which type do you want me to actually get over here. I want to read the mail that I just sent over here. So it calls the correct tool. So it's found an email with an ID. I'll say read this email now. Let's see if it can read the content. So it calls the right tool, and it basically does all its processing. It gets me the sender, the receiver. It tells me the subject is hello, the content is hello world. So that is exactly how it should be, and that's basically what we want to achieve with the server. The last thing that we want to test is deletion. Delete this email. So let's see if it can actually do that, or do I need some more access for this? So it calls the right tool, and it has deleted the email with this particular ID. So let's go to my inbox. Let's hit refresh once again. And this email is now gone. And that's basically the functionalities that I wanted to show you in this video. You can try some more things out. I've added them in the next steps list, which is basically do it yourself. I don't want to spoon feed you. And these I specified in the previous video. In this video, I want to ask you to try some more things. For example, I want you to refresh the token automatically. What is happening in this video is that the duration is too short for me to show this. But what happens is that, let's say it's 26 June 10:20 right now. In some time, this token may expire, maybe a day, 2 days, a week. Then this credential that you have, by the way, you can see that Gmail server credential file is now over here. this credential will not work anymore. You will have to refresh it using a refresh token. So try to figure out how can you do that automatically without trying to initialize the client once again. Alright, so that's one homework for you. It's a little complex, but it will really build a very, very good understanding of how this API works or how authentication systems work in general. And second is avoid rebuilding client for every function call. What do I mean by this? I mean that in the previous video and in this video, what I've been doing is I've been calling a function which gets me my client. Is there a way to actually pass a client in this function itself? Or maybe if you're not passing it, is there a way to just get the client without calling this function again and again every time we are calling one function or another function or another function? So is there a way to achieve it so that we can save on building this client repeatedly? So let's see if you can do that. In the next video, we will get on to something even cooler, something new. So stay tuned and follow for more. I hope you like this one. Thank you so much for watching.